The WhatsApp notification lit up my phone at 3:00 a.m. Dubai time. I was 7,000 miles from Chicago, sitting on the balcony of my rented apartment in Marina District, watching container ships drift across the Persian Gulf like illuminated cities. The message was from my brother. "You need to see this." Attached was a photo of Melissa in a wedding dress, my ex-fiancée of 7 years. She was standing next to Kenneth Whitfield, the senior partner at Whitfield and Associates, the law firm where she'd worked as a paralegal. The same Kenneth Whitfield who'd been 51 to her 29. The same man whose expensive cologne I'd smelled on her clothes 5 months ago, when everything fell apart. They'd waited exactly 105 days after our relationship officially ended. I counted. My name is Jason Reeves. I'm 36 years old, and until 5 months ago, I was a structural engineering consultant, living what I thought was a solid life in Chicago. I specialized in retrofitting older buildings, making sure century-old brick warehouses could support modern office equipment and meet current safety codes. Ironic, considering I'd completely missed the structural failures in my own relationship. I stared at that photo for probably 10 minutes. Melissa looked radiant. That's what people say, right? The bride looked radiant. Her auburn hair was swept up in some elaborate arrangement that probably cost more than our shared monthly mortgage payment on the Lincoln Park condo. The dress was designer, something European with a name I couldn't pronounce. Kenneth stood beside her in a tuxedo that fit him the way expensive clothes fit wealthy men, like they were born wearing them. The wedding was being held at the Chicago Athletic Association, that historic building overlooking Millennium Park. I'd actually worked on the seismic upgrade project back in 2019, ensuring the limestone facade could withstand modern environmental stresses. Now, my ex-fiancée was getting married there, and I was supposed to feel what exactly? My phone buzzed again. Another message from Cameron, my younger brother. "Call me when you can." Something happened at the reception. I looked at my watch. It was Friday morning in Chicago. The wedding had been Thursday evening. Whatever happened must have been significant if Cameron was still awake messaging me at 9 p.m., his time. I called him. "Jason," Cameron answered on the first ring. His voice had that edge it got when something was seriously wrong. "You sitting down?" "I'm in Dubai, Cam. It's 3 in the morning, and I'm drinking Arabic coffee on my balcony. What happened?" Melissa's wedding turned into a complete disaster. I felt something twist in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly. Maybe curiosity mixed with a small, shameful part of me that wanted to know she wasn't having the perfect fairy tale ending she'd imagined with Kenneth. "Tell me." Cameron took a breath. "So, Julia and I weren't going to go, obviously, but Nicole insisted we should make an appearance. Since she's Melissa's sister and all, we figured we'd show up for the ceremony, skip the reception. Julia was Cameron's wife of 10 years. She'd tried to stay neutral during the breakup, which I appreciated, even though it meant she'd maintained her friendship with Melissa's family. We sat in the back," Cameron continued. The ceremony was typical wealthy Chicago wedding stuff. String quartet, imported flowers, probably cost more than most people's annual salary. Kenneth looked smug. Melissa looked nervous, actually. I noticed her hands were shaking when they exchanged rings. Get to the part about the disaster. So we decided to stay for cocktail hour. Free premium bar, you know? We were standing near the library room when this older woman approached Melissa. Had to be in her 70s, really elegant, wearing this deep purple dress. I heard Cameron take a drink of something, probably bourbon. He always drank bourbon when he had a story to tell. The woman introduced herself as Dorothy Whitfield, Kenneth's mother. My hand tightened on the phone. I'd heard about Dorothy. Kenneth had mentioned her exactly once during the 5 months Melissa had been sleeping with him while still engaged to me. He'd said his mother was difficult and lived in Boston. "Dorothy smiled at Melissa," Cameron said, "and I swear, Jason, it was the coldest smile I've ever seen. She said, 'You're the fourth one, you know.'" "Fourth what?" That's exactly what Melissa asked, and Dorothy just kept smiling and said, "The fourth paralegal my son has married, though you're the youngest. Congratulations on that, I suppose." I stood up from my chair, coffee forgotten. Kenneth's been married before, 3 times, all to young women who worked at his firm. Dorothy made sure everyone within earshot heard the details. His first wife was 25 when they married. He was 39. Divorced after 2 years when he started sleeping with his secretary. Wife number 2 was a junior associate, 27 years old. That marriage lasted 3 years before she caught him with, wait for it, a paralegal. Wife number 3 was actually that paralegal. She was 28 when they married, divorced 14 months ago. The timeline clicked into place in my head. 14 months ago, Melissa and I had still been engaged. We'd been planning our postponed wedding, finally setting a date after COVID had derailed our original 2020 plans. She'd been working late at the firm, coming home exhausted, saying Kenneth was preparing for a major case and needed all hands on deck. "Jesus," I whispered. "It gets better," Cameron said. Dorothy wasn't finished. She told Melissa, "My son has a type, dear, young, ambitious, eager to please. He likes the chase, the secret affair, the feeling of power. But he gets bored easily, usually around the 2-year mark." What did Melissa do? She turned white, completely white. Kenneth tried to step in, told his mother she'd had too much to drink and needed to leave. But Dorothy just laughed and said, "I've been sober for 25 years, Kenneth. You know that." Then she looked at Melissa and said, "Do you know why he really divorced Amanda?" Amanda, wife number 3. Apparently she got pregnant. Kenneth made her have an abortion, said he was too old to start over with children. When she refused to get a second abortion a year later, he filed for divorce. I felt sick. Melissa and I had spent 18 months trying to conceive. We'd gone through fertility testing, spent thousands of dollars on treatments. She'd cried every month when her period came. And all along, she'd been sleeping with a man who forced his wives to terminate pregnancies. Melissa ran, Cameron said. Just bolted out of the reception. Kenneth went after her, but she locked herself in one of the bathrooms. Julia tried to talk to her, but she wouldn't open the door. Then, about 20 minutes later, she came out, got her purse, and left. Just walked right out of her own wedding reception. Where'd she go? No idea, but Jason, here's the thing. About an hour ago, Kenneth came back into the reception alone. He was drunk, really drunk. And he started telling people that Melissa was being hysterical and emotional, like all women. He said she'd come around once she calmed down and remembered which side her bread was buttered on. I looked out at the Gulf, processing everything. The fairy tale had lasted less than 4 hours. Julia grabbed me and we left, Cameron continued. But on the way out, I saw Nicole crying in the lobby. She said Melissa called her, asked if your Dubai number was the same. She wanted to know if you'd talk to her. Absolutely not. That's what I figured you'd say. But Jason, I've never heard someone sound so broken. Nicole said Melissa was apologizing over and over, saying she'd made a mistake, that she didn't know about Kenneth's history. She made her choice, I said, my voice harder than I intended. She chose him over 7 years with me. She gets to live with that. Cameron was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're right. You don't owe her anything. I just thought you should know what happened." After we hung up, I sat on that balcony until the sun came up over the Gulf, turning the water from black to silver to blue. I thought about Melissa, about the woman I'd met 8 years ago at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park. She'd been reading an architecture magazine, and I'd made some stupid joke about cantilevers. She'd laughed. God, she'd had the best laugh. We moved in together 2 years later, got engaged in 2019. We'd planned a small ceremony at the Garfield Park Conservatory for spring 2020. Nothing fancy, just our families and close friends surrounded by tropical plants and orchids. Then COVID hit. We postponed, then postponed again. Maybe that delay had been the crack that let Kenneth Whitfield slip through. I'd thought we were solid. The foundation seemed strong enough, but the cracks had started, showing about 3 years in. Melissa had always been ambitious, but it shifted from healthy drive to something desperate. She wanted more money, more status, more everything. My consulting business did well, pulling in $82,000 annually, but it wasn't enough. She started talking about the partners at her firm, their houses in Lincoln Park and Lake Forest, their vacation homes in the Hamptons. Then she got promoted to senior paralegal and started working directly with Kenneth Whitfield. Late nights became routine. Weekend emergencies were constant. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was building her career. I should be supportive. The day I found out, October 15th, 2024, I'd come home early from a job site in Naperville. My phone had died, so I couldn't call ahead. I walked into our condo and heard her voice from the bedroom. She was on the phone, talking in a way I'd never heard before, soft, intimate, laughing at something. When I opened the door, she went silent. Her face told me everything. She didn't even try to lie, just said, "It's Kenneth. We've been seeing each other for 5 months." 5 months. While I was planning our rescheduled wedding, while we were still trying to have a baby, while I was telling my mother that Melissa and I were thinking about buying a house with a bigger yard, the breakup took exactly 15 days. Melissa didn't fight me on anything. She signed whatever papers my attorney put in front of her, took her half of our shared savings, $21,000 out of our $42,000 nest egg, and moved into Kenneth's townhouse in Gold Coast within a week of our separation being finalized on October 30th. I'd lasted another 3 weeks in Chicago before accepting a contract position with Al Maktoum Engineering in Dubai. The United Arab Emirates needed structural engineers for their endless construction projects, and I needed to be somewhere Melissa couldn't accidentally run into me at Whole Foods or the gym we'd shared. The job offer was spectacular, $11,200 per month, tax-free, with housing allowance and annual flights home. In Chicago, I'd been struggling to save money even on a decent salary. In Dubai, I was building wealth at a pace I'd never imagined possible. My phone buzzed. Another message from Cameron. Nicole just texted Julia. Melissa's at her apartment. She's asking for your number again. What do you want me to tell her? I typed back. Tell her I'm not available. But even as I sent it, I felt something complicated twist in my chest. Not sympathy, not forgiveness. Maybe just curiosity about what she thought she could possibly say that would matter now. The sun was fully up now, and Dubai was waking up around me. I could hear the morning call to prayer from a nearby mosque mixing with the sound of traffic on Sheikh Zayed Road below. I had a meeting at 10 with a client who wanted to convert an old warehouse in Dera into luxury apartments. Normal work, normal life, 7,000 miles from the disaster. Melissa had made of her fairy tale ending. My Dubai apartment costs $3,100 per month, a glass-walled space on the 34th floor with views of both the marina and the Gulf. It was twice the size of the Chicago condo Melissa and I had shared, and I was saving more money than I ever had in my life. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her pursuit of wealth had driven her to Kenneth, while my escape from her betrayal had led me to actual financial success. My phone rang. Unknown number with a U.S. area code. I should have let it go to voicemail, should have blocked it, should have done anything except what I did, which was answer it. Jason. Melissa's voice was wrecked, hoarse from crying, barely above a whisper. Please don't hang up. I stood there on my balcony, phone pressed to my ear, and didn't say anything. I know you have every right to hate me, she continued, words tumbling out fast like she was afraid I'd disconnect. I know what I did was unforgivable, but Jason, I need you to know that I didn't. I didn't know about Kenneth's history. His mother, she told me things tonight that Cameron told me everything, I interrupted. Oh, she went quiet. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. Then you know what a fool I've been. Melissa, what do you want? It's 5 in the morning here. Where are you? Dubai, working. I have a 2-year contract with Al Maktoum Engineering. Dubai? She repeated it like I'd said Mars. You're in Dubai. Yes, making $11,200 a month, tax-free, living in a high-rise with a Gulf view, building a career that actually has a future. The silence stretched between us. I could hear her processing the numbers, probably comparing them to Kenneth's salary, to the life she'd thrown away everything to chase. I miss you, she said finally, in a small voice. Something hot flashed through me. Anger, maybe, or something sharper. You miss me? You left me 6 months ago so you could marry your boss? You miss me? I made a mistake. Multiple mistakes. You made multiple mistakes, I corrected. 5 months worth of them while we were still engaged, while we were planning our wedding, while we were trying to have a baby. I know, her voice broke. Jason, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need you to know. Melissa, stop. Just stop. I rubbed my face with my free hand. What exactly do you want from me? Forgiveness? Absolution? Permission to feel less guilty about blowing up 7 years together? I want, she trailed off. I don't know what I want. I just knew I needed to hear your voice. Well, you've heard it. Anything else? Do you hate me? The question surprised me. I looked out at the Gulf, at the container ships that never stopped moving, and tried to figure out how to answer honestly. No, I said finally. I don't hate you. I don't feel much of anything about you anymore, which is probably worse. She was crying now, really crying. I threw away the best thing I ever had. You were good to me, Jason. You were so good to me, and you chose someone else, I finished. Someone with more money, more status, someone who could give you the life you wanted. And tonight, you found out exactly what that life costs. Kenneth's mother said he made Amanda have 2 abortions. 2. And when she refused the 3rd time, he divorced her and made sure she couldn't work anywhere in Chicago legal circles again. I felt that familiar sick twist in my stomach. And you're surprised by this? We tried for 18 months to have a baby, she whispered. 18 months of doctors and tests and treatments. And I was sleeping with a man who destroys women for getting pregnant. You were sleeping with him while we were trying to conceive, I corrected. Don't rewrite history to make yourself feel better. It's not fair that you have to be right, she said, and I heard the bitterness in her voice. You always were too understanding. I'm not being understanding, Melissa. I'm being honest. You wanted something I couldn't give you. That's not a moral failing on either of our parts. It's just incompatibility. But I love you. Those 3 words hung in the air between Dubai and Chicago, separated by 7,000 miles and 5 months of destruction. No, you don't, I said quietly. You love the idea of me, the safety, the stability, the guy who never cheated on you or had 3 secret ex-wives, but you didn't love the reality of being with me. If you had, you wouldn't have left. Kenneth spent $85,000 on this wedding, she said suddenly. $85,000 on one night. Dorothy told me he spent the same amount on each of his previous weddings, like he was buying women, not marrying them. And that surprises you? No, God, no, it doesn't. That's the worst part. It doesn't surprise me at all. I knew what he was. I just thought I was different. I thought I was special. You were special, Melissa, to me. You just didn't think that was enough. She was quiet for a long moment. What's Dubai like? Clean, efficient, a place where people come to reinvent themselves. The engineering projects here are incredible. I'm working on smart city infrastructure, designing buildings that adjust their own structural systems based on environmental conditions. That sounds amazing. It is. I'm respected here. My work matters. And I don't have to worry about coming home to find my fiancée cheating on me. Jason, I have to go. I have a meeting in 4 hours and I need to sleep. Wait, please. Can I call you again? Can we just talk sometimes? I thought about saying yes, thought about how easy it would be to slip back into old patterns, to be the person Melissa turned to when her new life fell apart. But I'd spent 5 months building something new, something that belonged only to me. No, I said. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, I don't have anyone else. You have Nicole, your family, friends. They all look at me like I'm the villain in this story. Melissa, you were the villain in this story. You don't get to rewrite it now because you're unhappy with how it turned out. She was silent for so long, I thought she'd hung up. Then, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry I called. I hope you figure things out, I said, and I meant it. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, but you're not going to find it by calling me at 5 in the morning. I know, I needed to hear that you're okay, that I didn't completely destroy you. I'm okay, I told her. Better than okay, actually. I'm good. I'm glad. You deserve to be good. After she hung up, I sat on my balcony until my coffee went cold. I thought about marriages and mistakes, about the stories we tell ourselves and the realities we ignore. Melissa had built a fairy tale in her head about Kenneth Whitfield. Successful attorney, wealthy, sophisticated. She'd burned down our life together to chase that fantasy. And tonight she'd discovered it was built on the same foundation as his 3 previous marriages. I couldn't even feel satisfaction about it. Just a deep, settled sadness for the time we'd wasted. My phone buzzed one more time. Cameron. She called you, didn't she? Yeah. What did you tell her? I typed back. I told her the truth, that I'm okay, that she needs to figure out her own life. Good. You staying in Dubai for now? Maybe longer. I like it here. And I did. Dubai was clean slates and new beginnings. It was a city that reinvented itself constantly, building impossible towers in the desert and calling them progress. Maybe that's what I needed, a place that understood the value of starting over. The engineering work here challenged me in ways Chicago never had. I was part of a team designing adaptive buildings, structures that could modify their load-bearing systems in real time based on wind patterns, seismic activity, and temperature fluctuations. It was the future of architecture, and I was helping build it. 3 months later, I got an email from Nicole. She and Julia were planning a trip to Dubai and wanted to know if they could visit. The message was chatty, full of details about their itinerary and questions about which hotels were best. At the end, almost casually, she added, "Melissa and Kenneth are officially divorced. Turns out Dorothy was right about the 2-year pattern. Kenneth started sleeping with a new associate at the firm about 6 weeks after the wedding. Melissa found emails on his laptop. She's moving back in with her parents and taking some time to figure things out. She asked me to tell you she's sorry for calling you that night. She says she understands why you needed to move on." I stared at that email for a long time. Then I wrote back to Nicole, told her I'd love to see them in Dubai, suggested some hotels and restaurants. I didn't mention Melissa's divorce or her apology. What was there to say? 6 weeks after that, Kenneth had done exactly what his mother predicted. The pattern was so predictable, it was almost boring. A wealthy, powerful man who collected young women like trophies, discarding them when they became inconvenient or too familiar. Melissa had been wife number 4 in a series that would probably continue until Kenneth was too old to attract his preferred demographic. I'd saved $67,000 in my first 6 months in Dubai, more than I'd managed to accumulate in 3 years in Chicago. The cost of living was reasonable, the salary was exceptional, and without Melissa's expensive tastes draining our joint account, I was building wealth at a pace that shocked me. 6 months after Nicole's email, I was having dinner at Pier Chic, this restaurant built on a pier stretching into the Gulf, when I met Layla. She was a Lebanese architect working on the new terminal at Dubai International Airport, and we spent 3 hours talking about cantilevers and load-bearing walls and the particular challenges of building in the desert environments. She didn't ask about my past, didn't need to know about Melissa or the relationship I'd left behind in Chicago. We talked about the future, her project timeline, my contract extension, whether Dubai was a place we could see ourselves long-term. She was brilliant, discussing structural engineering with the kind of passion I recognized in myself, the love for creating something lasting and beautiful. When I walked her to her car that night, she said, "I like that you talk about buildings like they're alive, like they have personalities." "They do," I told her. "Every building tells a story about the people who made it, what they valued, what they were afraid of, what they were trying to prove." "What story are you trying to tell?" she asked. I looked back at the restaurant, at the lights reflecting off the dark water, at this impossible city built on sand and ambition. That sometimes the best thing you can do is start over, build something new on a better foundation. Layla smiled. "I like that story." A year later, I was standing on another balcony, this time in Layla's apartment in Dubai Marina, watching the same container ships drift across the same Gulf. My phone buzzed. A message from Cameron. "Melissa's engaged. Some guy she met in therapy. Not sure if you want to know, but figured you should hear it from me." I read the message twice, waiting to feel something. Anger, jealousy, maybe satisfaction that she'd found someone new. But all I felt was the same settled peace I'd carried for the past 18 months. I typed back, "Thanks for telling me. I hope she's happy." And I meant it. Whatever Melissa was building with this new person, whatever story she was trying to tell, I hoped it worked out better than it had with Kenneth. Better than it had with me. Behind me, I heard Layla's door open. She came out carrying 2 glasses of wine, handed me one, and leaned against the railing beside me. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How far away Chicago feels." She clinked her glass against mine. "Good. It should feel far away. You're here now." "I am," I agreed. "I really am." The wedding that destroyed Melissa's fairy tale had been the best gift she could have given me. It proved something I'd known, but hadn't been able to articulate when she'd left. We'd been building on a flawed foundation all along. No amount of retrofitting could have saved what we had. But here, 7,000 miles from the disaster, I'd found something better. something built on honesty and compatibility, and the simple truth that sometimes you have to let old buildings fall so new ones can rise. My phone stayed silent for the rest of the night. In the morning, I woke up next to Layla in a sun-filled apartment that belonged to both of us now, looking out at a city that represented endless possibility. I had extended my contract for another 2 years, and we were talking about designing our own home together, something modern and clean, with no ghosts from the past. I never replied to Cameron's message about Melissa's engagement. There was nothing left to say, and for the first time in my adult life, that felt exactly right.